talk about how exactly we can use the build parameters. The focus or the main utilization of the build parameters is actually to run the builds, but not with some hard-coded values. We can take some decisions, we can take some dynamic decisions, and corresponding to that, we can go for the execution. Now let's take an example. We just now talked about a Maven build, like how we can automate it or we can trigger it there. Now, if we want to take a decision, let's say very basic requirement that I don't want to typically run my test cases all the time. Yes, if I select the features, if I select the parameter that yes, I want to run the test cases, then only the test cases should be executed. Otherwise, it will be skipped. It should be skipped there. So if you have these kind of custom requirements, so in that case, what you can do is that you can say like how we can go and we can do the customizations. So in these setups, what you really need to do is that you need to go around and see like how a Maven build can be triggered in multiple ways. If I select, if I change or select the parameter, so the build should be executed, the test cases should be executed. Otherwise, it should not happen there. So let's quickly create a new Jenkins job here, new freestyle job here. So I'm going to run it like test automation. Let's create a Jenkins job with a test automation name, and freestyle Jenkins job is what we are going to create over here. Now when we are going to create it up over here, all the other configurations will remain the same, and there will be no difference as such there. But yes, what we are going to do is that what we are trying to achieve it is that we wanted to do the build automations, but again we are not going to hard code that time. For example, if I go to the build step and I say that invoke top level Maven targets, I can hard code the goals information, which is hard coded. Like, so it's not something which we are really trying to implement, because again it's going to be a difficult task, because when you run the clean install or these kind of goals, it's going to be a particular problem here. So instead of this, I really wanted to take a decision like we wanted to have a particular condition check over here, so that depending on that we can understand or we can delay that how these configurations we can do and we can understand there, right? So clean install is the goals which we are trying to use. We are trying to refer it up, and using that only we are trying to perform the configurations. So let's see, let's get rid of this, and we'll talk about like how we can use the parameters. So first we'll go to the build, the general tab. So in the general tab we have the parameters. This project is parameterized. So here we can select that what exactly parameters we are really like trying to look forward, we are trying to implement here. So here in this one you can select what are the different parameters which is required. For example, you select the parameters here, and there are different parameters which is available altogether. So let's say I'm going for the boolean parameter here. So here I'm going to select a value called execute test. So let's consider this as an kind of a boolean factor or a boolean parameter, that whether we really wanted to run the test cases. So that's kind of processing is what we are trying to do. We are trying to set up here. So we are just trying to see like how the overall execution or how the overall setups can be really performed, can be really achieved over here. So that's a kind of activity which we really wanted to proceed or we wanted to implement here, right? So that's a kind of work we are trying to do, we are trying to implement here. So let's go for the default value. Default value will always be true. So let's say like by default I'm going to pick the value as a true, so that the test cases by default gets triggered there, right? Now once that is done, so we'll say boolean flag for executing test cases during build process, and then we go for the source code management here. So in this one we will select that okay, this is a repo which is there, right? Just like we configured a couple of minutes back in the previous demo here. So you have decided that this is a repository, because again if you wanted to run the Maven builds, so the source code should be there, right? And that's something which is available in this repo. So we are going to make sure that yes, using this git we are going to connect, and we are going to establish the connectivity here, and master is a branch. Now let's talk about the build process, because last time we ran the invoke top level Maven targets, but again this time we really wanted to have some logic here. We don't want to straight away go and hard code the goals or the targets and run the Maven build. So I'm going to select the execute shell here. So when you select the execute shell here, so in this one you can actually really put the logic. You can use these parameters, So just like in Linux, you're using the dollar symbol to access the parameters. Here also, it's pretty much the same. So let me put a simple if condition that what will happen that if I'm pretty much going or I'm taking the value, depending on the value of this parameter, I'm really trying to see like if I should be triggering the build or not. So I'm just putting a simple if else kind of mechanism here, right? So we are just trying to say like, okay, if we're trying to do, if the value is true, execute test value is true, so we're saying that executing test cases build, and we are going to run the command called mvn clean install, or we can say mvn clean test, right? So that's a kind of test cases which we are trying to do. And again, in this one, we are going to see the how exactly the maven build or the maven test cases can be triggered. This one, what we are trying to do is that we are basically running the same mvn command. If I run the mvn clean install, so ultimately it should be running the whole build. Here also I can use install because I want to do the packaging also. But again, if the value is true, then only we should be going for that. But if the value is not true, then we should not be uh, executing the test cases, right? So echo command is fine, but as of now what is happening is that the maven command is also same. As you can see, like the mvn clean install command is also something which is available there. So we already got those things up and running there in this one. But I really don't want to go or want to proceed with these setups, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to run the build. But when you're not selecting that execute test option, so in that case we should not be getting like the whole build or the whole process should be up and running there. So the test cases should be cancelled there. So here we are going to say like, okay, mvn clean install, but we are going to put a parameter also, maven dot test dot skip is equal to true. So that's a kind of additional parameter which you're providing so that my test cases should be skipped here, right? So if it's a true value, test cases will be executing. If it's not a true value, the test cases will not be executing there. So let's see how it happens. So I'm going to run the build. Of course, by default, it's a true value. So I'm going to select and see that it's going to run the mvn clean install. So it's clearly mentioning that mvn clean install is running. So it's executing the test cases. You can see like the value is true itself, right? So it's giving me the detailed value. The test cases itself is getting created, executed over here, right? And the build is success. Let's say the same parameter, like if I go for build parameters and uncheck this one, I can override that value and I can have a different way of build here. Now in this one, it says its value is false and it's not trying executing the test cases. And eventually the second command, mvn clean install, and the maven test script. So here you would don't see any kind of test cases there. So tests are skips. It's being mentioned over here in this one. So you have the full control with the help of these parameters. Eventually it will help you or give you the capability that you can override the same value if you feel like you are using the same Jenkins job you wanted to have, and you wanted to implement that stuff. So if the same activity you want to do it into a different way, so in that case you can go and you can perform the integration altogether. So that's a main benefit which we get with these parameters. So it helps you to override the values, and the same build can be done in different manners as such. So that's how we integrate or we implement the parameters. So that's it for this demo. Thank you.